Okay, everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have an awesome follow-up review for you from the brand BOLDR Supply Company. A little bit about them: they're based out of Singapore and Malaysia. They manufacture watches and watch gear that's super tough, stylish, yet functional, and always ready for adventure. Now, this particular type of watch, I'd probably characterize it as a classic field watch. Some key common characteristics in the language when you're looking for that classic field watch: of course, you're going to want that modest, vintage style size, Arabic numerals, and a 12 and 24-hour scale, and typically they'll come in a black or cream dial. Now, what we have here is actually a little bit of a range of different models from this line, kind of with some different features and characteristics I figured I'd cover. But the main, the main event here today is the BOLDR Venture Field Medic 1, which was inspired by the brave and selfless healthcare community of the front lines for COVID-19. This special edition Venture is a medic-friendly chronograph watch that can be used to measure pulse rates and respiratory counts. Now, all these are pretty much all the same price at $299 direct. The blue one, you guys might remember, that's the essentially their automatic field watch, and then the white dial is one that I actually ended up purchasing for my son because I enjoyed the review sample so much that yeah, this thing was cool, and is a little bit small for me, but I picked one up, and I'm glad that I did because they also released a titanium bracelet, which we'll also cover here in the video. Now, the reason why I kind of have all three on screen is because it's just to really show the range and kind of versatility here with the OEM strap, how much of an aftermarket strap beast it is, and as well as how well it really flows on this new full titanium factory bracelet option. So with all that said, let's zoom the camera out, get these pieces in hand, and take a closer look. Okay guys, as you can see, we actually do have the case that the Field Medic came in. I was so impressed with it, I figured I'd have to show it to you guys. I don't know if this is how they're packing all their stuff now, or if it's just special to the Field Medic. When I bought these, they were just in kind of these little singular watch little rolls, which were cool. But this right here is quite special, as you can see. Very nice, really well done, and even typically you'd expect something like this in a much more expensive watch versus what we have here, but pretty nice layout. Obviously the watch was here, then you get the information. This is a nice little cue here: don't worry, they can handle dirt on the little wipe. Very nice. And then yeah, you get instructions and whatnot in here. It looks like a little bit of some marketing information, essentially, if you want to go ahead and and a sticker as well, a couple of stickers, guys. So for those of you that care a lot about, you know, the bells and whistles and some of the extra benefits, there you go, guys. That's pretty nice. Closes pretty well as well, so we'll take that off screen. As for the bracelet, very minimalist. It comes in a little pouch. Series bracelet strap, model Venture, titanium for the material, and then the lug is 20 millimeters. All right, so very minimalist for the strap there, but still all quite good. Now, we'll probably start with a little bit of a review and touch back on, hey, this model that I had a long time ago, reviewed, really enjoyed, and I have it on this really nice Haviston strap here, and then I clipped a little Sunto compass on there, and yeah, and it goes really well. It fits kind of with a tactical theme, but it's also fun and blue, and it's a bright kind of summertime color. Obviously loops through here, wears really well on wrist, and you know, gives you kind of an idea. Obviously it's a smaller watch at 38 millimeters, and then of course the near lugless design really shrinks the case down even more. So if you have a small wrist, this is perfect for you. If you have a bigger wrist, you're gonna have to find ways to kind of bulk it up, and for me, the way that I would bulk it up to make it a little bit more wearable was, you know, throwing it on a chunky strap with a and adding on a nice little bezel, compass. And the nice thing is it actually glows as well, so you can read this in the dark. Obviously the lume is really nice. And then for the other model here we have the white dial model on this great new bracelet, and I just want to show you guys Nicely integrated into the case. Very flat, female end link, so it doesn't add any length. You still have the drilled lug, so it's quite a strap monster. These are, you know, it's not a full 3-link. It's kind of a faux 3-link because it's just basically milled to appear that way. But if you look on the inside, they're just single links. If I can get it to focus, there you go. Just single links in there, folded. But I mean, you know, this is something. It's a $99 add-on and it's full titanium, so can't really be too mad at that. It wears really, really well, which we'll get into when we get these on wrist. But with kind of those little side commentaries out of the way, check this out, guys. Back to the main event. Really big fan of the MecaQuartz movement from Seiko Instruments. Get it going there. As you can see, there's not a running seconds hand here. Because essentially of the bi-compacts layout, it's really only going to be the 60-minute counter here. On this end is actually a 24-hour scale, and you can see with the date that it's actually starting to whoa, excuse me, sorry about that. Thank you, because I'm sure somebody blessed me out there out in the interwebs. So that's also another unique trait about the Field Medic and just their MecaQuartz Chronograph line in general when it comes to the Venture, is that it does have a date at 6 o'clock versus being a no date watch, which I think is really nice for legibility. But here you can see that it does add some nice function as well. And then you can see it's a nice smooth sweep because this is actually a mechanical, you know, the gear train essentially for that hand. You'll see when it snaps back, it's basically a mechanical gear train. I've really discussed MecaQuartz at length in other videos, so I won't dive too much into it, but it's really nice, and it's an enjoyable, fidgetable thing. The nice thing also, man, these pushers are fantastic. Screw down crown, but now it's been moved, right? So instead of having it at that kind of more closer to 4 o'clock, here you have the traditional 3, because you do have these great pushers. And man, look at the little micro bevels on there, really well finished, tie into the case really wonderfully. And you know, it's something that you would typically, I mean, it just feels a lot more expensive than it is. Obviously you are getting mechanical, right? These aren't buttons, you know, where that are, you know, interacting electronically. These are mechanical pushers that are engaging the gear train, disengaging the gear train. So really nice from that standpoint. When you look a little bit closer here, guys, you know, you can't see the movement, but let me pull back the curtain here and give you guys a little look at the case back. Okay, as you can see, it has this nice, obviously ties in to you know, the medic theme, which is really beautiful, and a little bit different obviously from your typical case back, with that nice kind of etching with the X logo. Here you're getting something a little different, and I like it, I have to say. And then the nice thing is the NATO that it comes on is actually full titanium hardware. Very nice, very sturdy. A little bit, just a hair too long, and slash a hair too, you know, a hair too short at the same time. Not long enough for me to fold back under my wrist, but not short enough for me to not need to fold it. So we'll get to that when we get into the kind of the way they wear. But to get into some of the details here, you can see we have this beautiful matte black dial. Everything's printed. You do have that nice, you know, you get the satin hands as well as the painted hands. So you do have the seconds hand, which is going to tie in to those sub registers, which is really, really nice. Then the other nice feature is that this is actually still 20 atmospheres or 200 meters of water resistance. So it is still quite a waterproof package, and something that can be worn, you know, in a water sports manner, or out in the field or whatever, out for your not only your everyday adventure, but even when you really get down and dirty. This is a case, and obviously we do have the sapphire with anti-reflective coating. So all around, this is going to give you a lot of great functionality. Another nice thing is you're actually getting 2 different colors of lume, and it doesn't really tell you what formula it is, but basically they label it a Japanese super lume. You get some green glow as well as some blue glow, which is really nice. So really digging this one. Obviously, you do get a little bit of a difference because you have the different outer scales there, which do squeeze the dial in a different way, and it does give it quite a different appearance there. So a little bit now about the bracelet to get into some of those details. It is, okay, like I mentioned before, $99, and then it's full titanium. It has solid end links and links, but then it does use push pin connectors, and I think that's kind of what you could probably expect for this price range. The nice thing is that it's made to go with the watch, so it actually fits really well. Although, because of kind of the semi-hooded lug, if you could source a bead blasted titanium bracelet, it probably wouldn't look too off-fitting here, because it would, the majority of it would be half-hooded, semi-hooded underneath those sloping lugs, as you can see here, right? So you know, there's not a lot that's not going to look good in terms of a strap when you're looking at these watches. So with that said, let's actually go ahead, get these on the wrist, and talk about how they wear. Okay guys, as you can see on my 7¼ inch wrist, this little 38mm wears really well, and really quite nicely. Even with its more stout proportions, it doesn't appear oversized at all. It's actually quite nice. Even up close, it doesn't seem like it's oversized, even though there is some lens distortion there. So you get a little bit more of my arm. You see, wears really well. Now for the MecaQuartz Chronograph, also very nice. As you can see, I do have that just enough to stick out too far, but not enough to fold back underneath itself. So typically I would trim these straps down. In this case, I figure I'll eventually just get it on a different strap, just because there are so many great options for something like this. And an example is this really great strap from Haviston. So as you can see, the strap it comes on is really nice. It does have the titanium hardware, which is great. It's even signed. You get the nice thick gauge and very tough resilient nylon, so that's really beautiful. And then of course, while it's on the wrist, if you really wanted to, you can engage the pushers very easily, snap it back into place. If you need to unscrew, you know, for whatever reason to reset something, change the date, flop it forward. If it's the first, then it still says the 31st. Very straightforward and easy affair. But you can see these both wear really nicely. I'm sure most of you are probably more concerned about how this titanium bracelet wears, and I think you get a nice idea of how flat it really wraps around the wrist and wears quite nicely. But with that said, really quickly, just to accentuate the strap monsterness of this particular watch, let's go ahead and throw the Haviston strap on. So essentially goes through here, goes through there, get a little bit of that, get these nice rubber keepers here, kind of slide them down. Of course, I'm trying to do this on camera. Is never as easy as it is when you're just doing it on your own. Of course, I'm reaching around a tripod to do this, so it's not technically this labor intensive. It's something that, of course, on camera just ends up working out that way. But as you can see, wears really nice, and it adds a bit of presence to the wrist. And you do have that nice functioning compass as well. And the nice thing is it's also lumed, so if you want to get your lume game going, you totally can. So yeah, it's just a fun thing. And then of course, with those semi-hooded lugs, it on any strap is going to flow. It's especially going to flow on anything with that kind of tactical feel. So, you know, to compare the OEM really nice titanium hardware NATO strap versus like a nice aftermarket tactical strap option from Haviston. So really cool options on both ends. But let's go ahead and set up some low light transition and Lume shots for you guys. All right, we'll go ahead and hit the lights. As you can see, really nice loom from that standpoint. All of them loomed quite differently. Of course, the camera's probably trying to adjust to the different brightness, but you can see that they're all loomed in very, very different ways. On the far right, you have the blue dial that has all the numerals loomed, as well as you're getting a nice idea of the compass glow as well. And then you look at the white dial, you realize that only those outer pips are really loomed on the dial. And then in the center, you do have, of course, that lovely chronograph, which isn't quite showing as well. So I just figured I'd throw a little black light action so you can get an idea. And some of that is, you know, just because of the essentially the camera, because it's trying to balance out the bright loom on either side of it. So it does make it pale a bit in comparison visually. But I did want to show you guys so you can get a nice idea of actually what's loomed, what's not. And you can see actually just getting a couple hits here does kind of brighten up that inner track there that's not quite as bright as the rest. But as you can see, you do get some blue loom in the center with the green loom versus the all green you're going to get from the two outer units. So one thing I also like to do when I'm doing these Lume shots is work in some low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field getting that direct sunlight. A lot of the times you're going to be in mixed lighting conditions, whether you're coming in and out of a building, or, you know, possibly walking underneath an overhang, coming in and out of a vehicle, whatnot. You're not always going to see the way that the finishes render, as well as the way that those dial colors render in different lighting situations. So what I like to do is get in here and really even give you some harsh, high contrast lighting that's typically will expose a lot of, you know, and any type of defect from a finishing standpoint that can be washed out by the bright studio lights. Not really a case for that here, because it's all matte blasted, so that's always going to be quite a uniform finish. But what you can see is the texture on the dials and kind of the way that they'll read in that transitional lighting. You can see, of course, the blue dial being the most legible in transition there, because it just has the most loom. But you know, the other models are not necessarily slouches by any means. So quite nice all the way around. Really, really fun to look at there. Okay. So, you know, guys, closing thoughts on the wrist. Very classic mid-size feel, and then obviously super lightweight, without feeling like wooden or tinny in any way. It's lightweight for kind of what it should be, right? Considering that it's a big chunk of metal, it should be heavier, but it's by no means like this featherweight thing. So it does still have a nice presence, especially when you throw it on the extra bracelet or a nice chunky strap. As far as model variation goes, there's various dial options in automatic and chronograph configurations, so definitely check out the site for the latest availabilities. As far as comparable models go, it's really tough to compare the Chrono variant. I think it was a little bit easier to compare, you know, the automatic to other field watches. Not necessarily the case here, because there's not too many kind of, at least not modern looking field chronographs. So, I mean, I guess we'll just jump to the bottom line. This is an awesome mashup of two very different genres that really come together to feel like an extremely cohesive and purposeful design. I mean, if the Field Watch variant, the three-hander, didn't exist and they just came out with this Field Medic watch, I'd believe it. I believe that they just came up with this thing from scratch, because that's how well everything kind of flows. And then, you know, obviously with the different dial dimensions, it just makes it visually where in a different way, a little bit smaller even. So if maybe these are a little bit too dial centric for you, the automatic models, and you feel like maybe they appear a little bit big on your smaller wrist, the information and the way that the dial balance is set up for the chronograph might actually be the answer you're looking for. So with all that said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do it like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.